On mute, that's why. There we are. Can you hear me now? Brilliant. Great. Thank you very much. Excellent. Or maybe what makes you happy is being out in nature. My family and I went for a walk yesterday afternoon on Shotover. So exciting to see spring beginning to happen all around us. Or maybe the thing that makes you really, really happy is spending time with friends or family. How lovely to have so many of Lily's family with us today. Well, this morning's Bible passage in Numbers chapter 6 is all about happiness. In particular, it's about how God is absolutely determined to pour out happiness on his people. Maybe some of us find ourselves a bit sad this morning for all sorts of reasons. Others of us may be feeling really happy right now. Whatever we're feeling, this passage tells us that more than anything, God wants to pour out happiness on us. And it's all tied up in that little word, bless. If you've got the passage open, it's page 141 in the church Bibles. It's verse 24, where God tells Aaron to say to the people, "The Lord bless you." Like the sun pouring out life-giving warmth to the earth. Or like that water pouring down over Lily's head just now, God, our Father, is determined to pour out goodness, love, happiness on his people. In fact, that's our first heading. True happiness is a gift of God. It's God loving us. So look at how the passage begins. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites." And look at how the passage ends. "So they will put my name on the Israelites, and I will bless them." And look at how each sentence begins. The Lord, the Lord, the Lord. It couldn't be clearer, could it? It's God. He's the one who pours out happiness on our lives. Just think back to all those different things that make us happy. We're thinking about now, like food and nature and friends and family. Who made all those? God, didn't he? He made them because he loves us and he wants us to be happy. They're all gifts from him. See, the Bible tells us that God is supremely happy. He's perfectly, infinitely, always happy. In fact, God is so bursting with happiness that he longs to pour out that happiness on all of us so that we can share his happiness too. And sometimes when we're feeling sad, or like we're missing out, or like others have got more than us, a great cure is to remember all the wonderful gifts God's already given us. Have you ever played that game where you think of something, like a kind of topic like girls' names, and then have to go through the alphabet, thinking of one for each letter? So A might be Alice, B, Bella, C, Chica, D, Dahlia. Well, how about instead, over lunch today, going through the alphabet, and for each letter, thinking of a gift that God's given you, beginning with that letter, that you can thank him for. Happiness is a gift. It's God loving us. Second heading, and here we get to the heart of it, true happiness is a smile from God. It's God delighting in us. So look again at verse 24. "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you." Do you like emojis? You know, those little kind of yellow faces that express how we're feeling. Here's the question. If you had to pick an emoji for how you think God feels about you, what would it be? Maybe it would be a frown, like this one here. "Oh dear, Paul's not been a very good boy this week." Maybe that's how you think God feels about you. Or maybe you think he has a worried face, like this one. "Oh dear, let's see how Paul gets on this week. Will he be good enough for me this week?" Or maybe it'll just be a kind of bored, meh sort of face. "Oh, it's Paul again. Don't you know I've got more important things to worry about than him?" And I guess the Israelites, God's people, might have thought God felt all those things about him. He's just rescued them from being slaves in Egypt, but instead of loving him and trusting him, they kept on turning away from him. They made a golden calf and worshipped that instead. They grumbled about the food he gave them in the desert. Said it was much nicer back in Egypt where they were slaves. Surely God will be pretty fed up with them. But look again at verse 25 and see how God really feels about his people. The Lord make his face shine on you. Imagine what Alex's face looked like the first time he held Lily. I bet it was shining, wasn't it? Or imagine the look on the face of a young man when he goes down on one knee and the girl of his dreams says, I will marry you. Well, that is the look on God's face when he thinks about us, his people. It beams with delight. Maybe some of us feel like we don't get much of that kind of love and delight in our lives. We wish we did, but we're quite alone, or we can't see friends and family as much as we used to. Well, know this. If you are part of God's family, if you belong to Jesus, then every time God thinks of you, which is all the time, his face bursts into the biggest smile imaginable. Many years ago, in Persia, there was a king called Shah Abbas. He ruled over the great walled city of Isfahan. He was a good and kind king, and every night he would go in disguise around his city to meet his subjects and find out about their needs. Well, one night he found himself right down in the depths of the city, in the boiler rooms that kept the public baths warm. And he got talking to a man whose job it was to kind of keep the fires burning all night to keep that water warm. And every night, Shah Abbas would go back to chat with this man, to share his meal with him, to play chess and enjoy friendship. Well, after a few months of this, the Shah thought, I really need to tell my new friend who I am. So he threw off his disguise and said, look, it's me. I'm your Shah. And just as the humble stoker fell to his knees before him, the king said to him, look, as a token of our friendship, I'd love to give you a gift. Anything, you name it. Money, wealth, a new position. What would you like? And the man paused and then said, my lord, the only gift I ask is the one you've already given me. Your greatest gift. Your friendship. God has poured out so many blessings on all of us. In fact, on all people. But the greatest blessing he offers us is himself. His friendship. So if, like so many in our world, we get no further than just enjoying his gifts, ice cream and chocolate and walks with our family and playing with our friends, then actually we're missing out on the best thing of all. The one gift we can't lose. Friendship with the God who made us, who delights over us and promises to be with us wherever we go in the wilderness of this world. Which brings us on to our final heading. So true happiness is a gift from God. It's God loving us. It's a smile from God. It's God delighting in us. And then finally, true happiness is peace with God. It's God watching over us. Look at that final sentence of the blessing in verse 26. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. So at this point in the Bible, the Israelites are on their way to Canaan, the land God has promised them. But it's a land full of powerful enemies who want to hurt them. And in between, God is leading them through the desert, which is full of dangers and difficulties. It's a reminder that the blessed, happy life isn't always the easy, carefree life. When we follow God, he doesn't promise to take away all our troubles and temptations. He promises us something better. He promises to be with us and protect us. And that's what that word keep means in verse 24. Keep safe. It's what verse 26 means when it says that the Lord turns his face towards us. Like a shepherd lifting his head to check that all his sheep are safe. So God never takes his eyes off us. He's always ready to spring to our defense. About 20 years ago, there was a terrible civil war in a country called Burundi in Africa. The war lasted for 12 years and many, many people suffered. Well, a friend of mine was working in a refugee camp there at the time. And one day an old man walked into the camp who had lost everything in the fighting. His home, his village, his family. But when my friend met him, this old man was sitting by himself and singing hymns. How can you sing after so much trouble? My friend asked. The old man replied, I didn't realize that Jesus was all that I needed until Jesus was all that I had. And that's what that final word, peace, means. Not that we'll never face battles, the Israelites did, but that through it all, Jesus, our good shepherd, will be with us to get us safely to his promised land, a place of perfect peace and happiness forever. True happiness is peace with God. It's God watching over us. They're wonderful verses, aren't they? Wonderful things to be praying for Lily as she grows up, that she would know God's blessing, God pouring out eternal happiness on her. But as we end, just notice how God's blessing comes to his people. Verse 23, it's through the high priest Aaron. Every morning, after the daily sacrifices in the tabernacle, Aaron would stand in front of the people and say this blessing on them. Well, we also have a high priest. Not Aaron, not even Ben, over there at home, but God's own son, Jesus. Jesus is the only one who truly deserves God's blessing. Remember at his baptism, how God spoke from heaven and said, this is my son whom I love. With him I'm well pleased. Well, at the cross, Jesus offered his perfect life as a sacrifice to God. Rather than the blessing and life that he deserved from God, Jesus suffered the cursing and death that we deserve. Rather than God's face shining on Jesus in peace, God's face turned away from Jesus in punishment. But it was all part of God's loving plan to bless us. God raised Jesus to life again and welcomed him back into heaven. And today, right now, Jesus is sitting at God's right hand as our high priest, praying for us continually. If we could hear him praying for us, it would make so many of our worries evaporate, wouldn't it? What is he praying for us? Well, I don't quite know, but I think it's probably something along the lines of this from Numbers chapter 6. Jesus prays for us. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you his peace. Amen.